Welcome back to the Standing Room Only podcast. It's episode 103, holiday edition. Christmas is this week. There's been some sports that have been happening. Not a lot of great news, though, with who has been playing in all the games. But we're here to talk to you another week about sports in general. As always, follow us on social media at SROnlyPod. Find us on Twitter, Instagram. Follow our personal pages. Mine is at the Healy6.
And I'm Goose with 4 O's. As always, don't ask why. Just hit that follow button. Make sure you guys are following us. Let's talk sports.
Yeah, not a lot. Baseball, it's in a lockout. They did make a signing this week. They signed Buck Showalter to be their new manager. He has a lot of wins in his career. He has like 1,500 wins. He also has 1,500-ish losses as well. Around a 500 manager. A little bit older. A lot of people were skeptical because of him being on the older side and how the game has changed. But Buck came out today. He said he is on board with the analytics. And that's good. Having someone that can adapt to the new game and not just think they're above all because of what they did in the past. Great to hear.
Yeah. I think one thing to point out is he's not the oldest manager in the league. I think Tony La Russa probably gives him a run for his money. Tony La Russa is pushing 78 years old. Buck's about 65, I believe. So the last time Tony La Russa was Buck's age, he was winning a World Series, roughly, give or take a couple of years. I know that he didn't have the most success with Baltimore. Not many people do. Baltimore just doesn't win. It's a franchise that has not won in, I don't even know if they ever have. It's a good signing, though. And as a Mets fan, the fact that they continuously go out and continuously during a lockout
83.
are in 83 was the last World Series.
Yeah.
Was Cal Ripken? Was he playing? Was he there? I wonder. When did Cal Ripken start? That is what I'm wondering. So I know Cal Ripken Jr. was around for a while.
I'd say around there.
Okay. Maybe right before.
You know. So yeah, Buck Showalter, kind of like a Tony La Russa signing. As long as he goes along with the analytics and he doesn't show up his players sometimes, we could be good. We could be good because that is kind of like a downfall that Tony had last year. I'm not going to blame them losing or Yerman Mercedes being bad because of him, but it is kind of bad when your manager just doesn't help you out. Doesn't back you up on stuff. Also, it's
bad when
that World Series team had Eddie Murray, Cal Ripken, Jim Palmer, Dennis Martinez. So a couple notable names.
Okay, so Cal was there. Okay, so it's been a while, and obviously he wasn't coaching at the time, or at least of the Baltimore Orioles. But yeah, like you just said. Not necessarily, and this isn't a target on older people, right? It's just the whole analytical game, cultural, what you grew up with, what you are accustomed to. The whole Yerman Mercedes is actually a great example. Not to say that Tony La Russa was the cause of the effect of Yerman Mercedes falling off, because he had one of the hottest starts that we've seen in a while for a Sox player and probably MLB in the last couple of years. But it makes a difference. It makes a difference. You want a guy that's going to sit there, especially, he had a home run when he shouldn't have, maybe, unwritten baseball rules, which we have been showingly going away from the last couple of years. But you want a guy that's going to go to bat for you. As a coach, you want a guy that's going to sit there and say, maybe he shouldn't have, but at the end of the day, you threw the pitch to him. That's the type of coach you want. Now, can Tony La Russa win for the White Sox? Sure. Can Buck Showalter do it for, for the Mets? I think he could. I think he could. And the thing is, if he's on board with analytics, because analytics is everything, stats are a thing. I think he'll be okay, especially with that very, very, very talented team.
Yeah, and in both situations too, a lot of people gave Tony a lot of credit for what the White Sox did. The White Sox pretty much they underperformed last year.
Mhm.
And they already have a loaded roster to begin with. You could put a hamster in the dugout and they probably would get a lot of wins as well. That team is talented. They're just the guy there to write down the lineup card and make pitching changes.
Yeah, yeah. No, that's how I look at him as well. As a fan, we knew what they had last year. We saw they were pretty good. This year, injuries. If it wasn't for the injuries, he would look like probably a genius. But, with the trades that happened, and I don't know what kind of pull the actual manager has, like trading Nick Madrigal for um uh who did they get again? Oh, Cesar Hernandez. Oh no, they traded him to the Cubs for Craig Kimbrell.
Yeah.
Yeah, so they traded him for Craig Kimbrell, who ended up not actually being as good as he was leading up to that point. Who is a very good pitcher, but it's just certain things where certain moves get made, they underperform despite injuries. And could they be better? Yes. I just feel like there's a morale. There's a morale in anything, as far as work goes. And if you're a player, you have a morale. You look at your Mercedes, who is an underdog story, a guy who's came up at 30 something years old, who's done it all at this point, and he's thriving, and then he gets shut down, and now he's not recovering from what seems to be that event of Tony La Russa. It makes you wonder and hope that it doesn't happen with any other coach, especially of the older generation, guys who have been around doing it for a while. So I think the Mets will be good, though. I actually really like the Mets. Um, obviously they lost Javi, who was there for half a season. Not too worried about that.
Yeah, they picked up 3 players that already fix that WAR value that they lost.
Yeah. So, and WAR is a very key stat for a lot of people who don't know. Look into it. You'll see it's pretty much if you go to MLB Baseball Reference, any sort of stat reference website, you'll see WAR is going to be there. It's there like it is for home runs. So there's a reason for that. So definitely look into that. But yeah, I think the Mets are going to be good. Now it's a matter of what's Atlanta going to do? Obviously, we know Atlanta was pretty good this year. They made the right moves. The East, to me, the NL East is like the NFC East in the NFL. You never know what you're going to get. So I do think I am a buyer on the Mets, but you just never know.
All that can be talked about with baseball right now is staff signings. And if a team wants to do anything to their stadium, I guess. But besides that, that might be one of the last baseball news until February when news starts picking up. I think the lockout's going to stay a lockout till February. Why? I have no idea, but that's just it seems like at the moment. So if you enjoy the baseball talk, we're sorry. Not our fault. The basketball, though, the Bulls returned for the first time in over a week yesterday, and they had a lot of their players back as well, which was great.
Yeah.
They went up against the Lakers, who do not have Anthony Davis. Anthony Davis, he just cannot stay healthy. He is just injury riddled, and it'll probably keep happening until the end of his career. You just count on an injury from him like every single season. Disappointing in that way. The Bulls, though, come out against the Lakers. They sweep them in the season series. It was close all the way up until the end. DeMar DeRozan dropped 20 points in the fourth quarter. He has been so good this season.
He is probably the most underrated signing in the history of the league. And we talked about it. We talked about it going into the season. Before the season started, we thought it was a little crazy with the over-under of 42 games or whatever for the Bulls being a 500 team. Because we know, I mean, we're fans of the Bulls. We're fans of why we watched the East. And we saw what DeRozan was capable of doing for so long. This takeover that DeRozan has where his mid-range is just automatic, I never expected it. I don't even think I've ever seen this. I don't even think he was this consistent in Toronto with his mid-range game. Down the stretch, there was that mid-range shot he hit on LeBron. There was an offensive rebound that got kicked back to him. The time was running, and he just pulled up in LeBron's face from mid-range. And that's why they call him DeMarvelous, with the mid-range maestro right there. He drilled it, and, it was a really close game. It was actually a fun game to watch. Super fun game. Caruso getting gritty in that game against his former team.
Down the stretch, there was that one offensive rebound, and then there was also another offensive rebound a possession or two later where they got it, and there was like a 5-second difference in the shot clock. They're up 1 point, and the Lakers decided to foul.
I tweeted about that. They fouled. They had no reason to foul.
Did Russ, was it Russ who fouled or Rondo? I think it was Russ.
That was on Rondo.
Oh,
that
Rondo.
Was yes.
Does he think the shot clock goes back to 24 still off an offensive rebound?
I don't know. I don't know what was going through his head. So it was the offensive rebound by Lonzo Ball with about 18 seconds, meaning there's 4 seconds difference between the game clock and the shot clock. Shot
in a
clock
1 point game.
In a 1 point game. And fouled, which is fine because it's still a 1 possession game. But I think the Lakers may have had a timeout. If not 4 seconds, you get down court in a second, maybe 2 seconds, we'll call it. You can set up a play, a 4-second play. I don't recall if there was a timeout or not. I could have sworn there was.
And you'd only need a bucket, no matter what.
A bucket. Or get a foul. Drive in with LeBron, who probably will get a call anyways. LeBron had a hell of a game. LeBron, it seems like he slowed down because he did. I would say he slowed down. But everything's so calculated. And I know a lot of people love to hate on LeBron. I love LeBron's game. I love his game. I feel like he amplifies his team. Carmelo, looking like Carmelo of old in the last few games, especially with Davis being out. Gave the Bulls, who is at about 90% health, let's call it. They still need LaVine. With LaVine, it could have been a very different game. Defensively, though, the Bulls were 100%, I would say. And overall, it was a good game. I don't know. I'm just sold on the Bulls right now as being a very, very tough, gritty team that is very talented offensively with DeRozan and LaVine, who obviously isn't back yet. But these other pieces that are stepping in, Lonzo Ball with 19 and 4 and 4, seems to be a better offensive piece than what anybody had expected him to be, even after his first few games with the Bulls, shooting 45% from 3. In this game against the Lakers, not including the last game against the Rockets, he is very, very key and will be in a 7-game series when it comes playoff time. They beat the Rockets. They beat the hell out of the Rockets.
Yeah, they won.
That was back-to-back games.
Plus.
Yeah, they were up by 20 plus. It ended up being garbage time points, so they won by 15. But that was another game. DeRozan dropped 26 points in a game that was kind of like they were up by 20 points the whole game.
And Kobe dropped 24, which is funny because we talked about if the Bulls should get rid of Kobe, and he was needed in that game.
This is good. Kobe drops 24. That's his second 20-point game in the last month or so, he missed a few games. You want this. You want this. As the Bulls franchise, you want him to produce because the trade stock, the value goes up. You're like, okay, he's still a good offensive producer. He can still shoot the long ball. He's got to the line. He shot 5 of 5 against Houston. And if they don't trade him, well, that's another weapon off the bench. A lot of these guys that are in this lineup, we're not going to see down the stretch because COVID. Everybody's literally on the COVID protocol in the whole NBA, NFL, any league you look at right now. But the fact that he's putting in the production with the time that he's given, he's a hell of a player. I would love for them to find a way to keep Kobe, but it just doesn't seem logical with what they have going on. Because you're not going to get rid of Caruso. You just signed Caruso to a multi-year deal. You still have Levine. You have DeRozan, who's going to flex between the 2 and the 3, sometimes the 4. Lonzo. Io, who's a rookie. You're not going to get rid of him because, well, I mean, I don't know as far as the rookie contracts go. Maybe his contract is the same. So, but I feel like there's more value out of a shooter type player like Kobe White. I don't know. Maybe not. Oh, and Javonte Green, who's also a guard that's been stepping up like Caruso to play the guard bigger guys. They're just so guard heavy. It's like you kind of have to like flip a coin. Who's going to get traded at this point? Unfortunately, it has to be Kobe White. I think if a guard has to go, as much as I don't want Kobe White to go, if they can make a trade and keep Kobe White, give him 10, 15 minutes a game for now, it's not possible though.
Yeah. Speaking of COVID, though, this weekend, NBA normally happens on Christmas from beginning of the day to the end of the day. Matchups aren't looking too great. We already know there aren't going to be postponed games for that. It's their biggest money-making game of the day or of the year. NBA has allowed teams to sign like one replacement player at the moment for if they need to like have someone if they don't have a full 8. But I think teams are going to throw out like G League rosters this weekend and the games aren't going to be as good. Do you think after this weekend season gets postponed for a little bit?
Define postpone. Are we so all right.
Like you give it like 10 days, like a couple weeks.
Like a 10-day postpone. I could see that.
Because there's
yeah. I could see 7 to 10 days. I could see a 7 to 10 day postponement given the time frame. And obviously with this new variant and everything's changing, you know, I feel like we're having this conversation like we did for the first time when COVID first hit and they were able to play games. We don't know what was going to happen. So yeah, it's possible. I do think it's possible. We're seeing it, like I said, across the league. We're seeing it in every league that's out there right now. NBA, NFL, NHL, I think had a few.
NHL suspended their season a little bit.
Yeah. And like 10 days seems like a logical time frame. I mean, all these guys that tested positive, they got it. Are they going to test positive again? Can they test positive again? Probably not.
They could though.
Now,
but
they could probably, but it's not likely. Just based on the history of a virus, right? And so, do I see it happening? Yes, I do. Now, is the NBA scared to do that? Yeah, they make millions and millions, maybe billions, probably millions every week that there's games with advertisement and everything. I'm sure they'll do everything to not allow games to get postponed or canceled. But are they going to hurt for 10 days now? No, I don't think so. Why ruin teams in a stretch that play 4, 5, 6 games in a stretch of 10? Why force them to play G League players when it's affecting the whole league? You're literally like forcing every single team to sign guys to 10-day contracts, which is cool. Shout out to those guys getting those 10-day contracts. Some of the guys stepped up for the Bulls big time. McKinney, a couple of these guys, but it would be okay from a fan standpoint. I'm speaking on behalf of all fans. If you want to postpone for 10 days, 14 days, sure. Now, do I see a postponement of like a whole month? No, I don't see that. But 10 days, I can definitely see that. I could definitely see that. As much as Adam Silver is like, we're not trying to go down that path.
Yeah, and 10 days gives people enough time to just stay away, like quarantine a little bit. With how many people are in protocols at the moment, it'll give them enough time to come back and be healthy, be fine, get through it.
Yeah.
And you'll have like a reset. You're actually going to have teams playing their best basketball instead of just seeing a kind of healthy team go up against a team that's just infected by it, hurting their record.
AKA Kyrie Irving.
Oh, he's scheduled to come back.
He came back and went straight to the COVID list.
I think kind of have to though.
Yeah.
With him being away, you would think he would be in protocols regardless.
He should be in protocol at least the 10 days, whatever. I mean, there's a lot of testing, and obviously they're testing enough. It's just, we went to the Bulls game about a month ago against the Hornets, and it was probably about 2 weeks after that, maybe a week, where we saw. I don't know if Vucevic was before or after that, but we started to see one guy turn into two guys, and then they played another set of games. I don't know if it was New York or who it was, but all of a sudden we're like, oh, DeRozan was already in protocol. All of a sudden, Levine's in protocol. This guy's in protocol. That guy's in protocol. That other team now has guys in protocol. So the whole testing idea is cool because, well, we test what we test for. But obviously, there's not 100% accuracy or whatever the situation may be. Maybe it just takes a little bit longer for it to show up in tests. Maybe it almost seems logical for, okay, let's give these guys 10 days off. But don't fuck around. Go and relax. Be with your family, whoever you'll be, for 10 straight days, and let's get back to it. Didn't have issues last year. It wasn't this bad last year, if I recall correctly. So, and obviously, like I said, there's a variant, there's all this other stuff that I personally can't speak on. I don't know about, and there's a lot of unknowns. So, and with the holidays, why not give them 10 days?
Yeah.
Why not?
Yeah, just give them 10 days. We'll be back. They cannot afford to do this though and then have it just extended. You have to set a set day, and just, if unfortunately it doesn't work out correctly, then I guess we just play for a bit and just it'll fizzle out at some point. But with how contagious everything is, you're going to see just a bunch of people in protocols up until it dwindles down.
Yeah. I mean, at the end of the day, I think the biggest thing is obviously do what they can to get through it with the fan base. I mean, is that going to affect the fan base now? Like, what are they going to, obviously it's all based on the state as far as capacity. And, because the NBA is not going to sit here and say, oh, we want, to ensure safety, we're going to go to 50%, because no, there's more money involved. The more people, the more fans. So there's a lot of factors that go into it as well. So obviously only time will tell. And it's going to be very soon before they make a decision. Like the fact that we're on it's the 21st right now that we're recording. Christmas is in a few days. That's a big day for for NBA. That's a huge day for NBA. Like that's a lot of viewers, and especially considering the games that they've had in the past, the games that they have coming up. What is that going to do for them? Is that going to hurt them? I mean, there's so many unanswered questions that we won't know the answers to, but it's stuff that to think about as far as, shutting down the whole everything. And I think if they do it, they'll be fine to where they don't have to extend the season. Back-to-back games is going to be a thing. We saw it with, I mean, it was a different reason, but we saw it with the Warriors. Steph Curry got the record in New York after just flying the same day from, I think, Indiana, which isn't a far flight, but it's same day travel. The NBA can accommodate. They can accommodate. And I think they will. At the expense of the players, unfortunately.
10-day span, you're only missing like 3 or 4
3
games, I'd
games,
say.
yeah.
So it wouldn't be that bad trying to sprinkle them in.
Mhm.
With that, though, we are going to move on to NFL to finish things off. We'll talk about your Green Bay Packers and how they beat the Ravens, or should we say how the Ravens beat themselves
Beat
again.
themselves, yeah.
Twice in 3 weeks, the Ravens have gone for 2 to try to win the game instead of just tying it up with the point after. Their analytics team, they've always been about analytics. I also saw a video from this past weekend where the players really just wanted to go for 2. They are playing with a lot of guys out, including Lamar Jackson. Packers would have got the ball back with 40 seconds left. All they would have needed is a field goal. Who knows what would have happened there with Aaron Rodgers. But do you think the Ravens have been making the right decision going for 2 and going for the win? Or are they using analytics too much and just should have went with the safe game and just try to force a win out of like a tie or maybe going in overtime?
Green Bay shut down. They had the game from the first. I think they were up by like 3 scores in the third quarter. I think when push comes to shove, yeah, analytics is a thing. But you don't have Lamar Jackson at quarterback. Hundley had a good game. He's had a few good games, actually. He's not a bad backup. He's actually one of the better backups in the league. And it fits the scheme very well. But don't ever try to play my defense like that ever again. I think the biggest thing is they got stingy. And the defense played Green Bay pretty well in the second half-ish. I'd say they played them pretty well. They played Aaron Rodgers pretty well. They stopped the run pretty enough for to allow a comeback. So to me, there's defensive momentum. The defense has momentum. Granted, was there a lot of points scored? Was Green Bay keeping them on the field for a while? Yes. But to go for the 2 and not try to get this safe, you have Justin Tucker's not going to miss an extra point. I get the aggressiveness to go for the win, but here's my problem. You have a guy sitting on the bench who's hurt, Lamar Jackson, who can't go in there and win the game. You're in a division that I would consider one of the closest divisions in the league. The AFC East is pretty close, but the AFC North is damn close. Steelers have been pretty okay competing. The Browns have been pretty okay competing. The Bengals have been pretty damn okay competing. It's a little selfish of the play caller, which I think might have been the coach at the time, Harbaugh. And to not allow this call to get made while Lamar Jackson's in the game, you basically took him out of the picture because now every single game is as important as a playoff game moving forward. Instead of putting your team in the best position possible, which was the comeback, which they did, but to not kick the extra point. Granted, Aaron Rodgers historically is probably the best quarterback in fourth quarter history, especially with 40 seconds. But it's something's odd about not allowing your team to play defense with 40 seconds.
Especially against a team like the Steelers. The Steelers were another one where they did that against.
Yeah, in week 13. Yeah.
And the Steelers aren't that good. Big Ben is not great right now. The Steelers as a whole, they aren't great.
They're just getting by. They're literally the Steelers are almost playoff team because they're just getting by, which includes getting by because of stupid play calling by Baltimore. That's included. That's a win right there. Otherwise, Pittsburgh would be 6-7 instead of 7-6-1, 6-7-1. Baltimore I like the Bengals. The Bengals right now are my team that I look at when I was looking at the Atlanta Hawks in the NBA about two years ago, before they got really good. I think the Bengals are the team of the AFC North, along with Baltimore. Cleveland, they have too many issues. Pittsburgh definitely has too many issues. Actually, I put Cleveland above Pittsburgh. But Baltimore screwed themselves because that whole AFC wild card now, you have the Colts who have been balling out.
JT, Wisconsin.
JT, front runner for MVP, incredible back. The Chargers are still a very dangerous team, depending on which Sunday it is. And Buffalo, who is only a game behind the Patriots, so you have Buffalo Patriots for that third wildcard spot. Baltimore's tied with Buffalo right now. But you have Baltimore, Pittsburgh, Vegas, Miami, Cleveland, Denver, all right there.
And
Instead of Baltimore,
Baltimore has 3 losses in the past 3 weeks by 4 total points.
That's bad. That's not bad. So to me, that's good. You only lost by 4 total points, but let's dissect that.
How close the AFC is. Oh man,
you can't have that.
They would be the number 1 seed right now if they would have won all 3 of those games.
Yeah.
But now they're sitting on the outside of the playoffs.
Baltimore's still a dangerous team. They will always be a dangerous team as long as they have those players. And you hate to blame the play calling, but why are you going for 2 again against a team where, yeah, Green Bay gives up big plays. They're notorious for giving up big plays, but they have more talent on this defense than they've had probably since in the history. 2010. We'll call it 2010. I'm not going to say the history. Since 2010. Playmakers all over the field. Jair Alexander's coming back. I think he might have played in that game. I don't know if he's back yet. But that's a big loss right there. Because not only on top of that, you put the pressure on a backup quarterback to make the right play. And let's be fair, as good of a defensive play it just wasn't a good offensive play. The throw was not really there. It just wasn't good. It wasn't good for the Ravens. And that's going to be a lot to talk about moving forward because the Ravens actually moving forward. So with this loss against Green Bay, which Green Bay was on the road, they were in Baltimore. Now they have Cincinnati, who's been pretty okay all season. They have the Rams and they have Pittsburgh again. So 2 AFC divisional games, and they play the Rams, who I think the Rams, if Lamar Jackson isn't back by then, I don't see this team winning any of those 3 games. There were some other good games though. Tom Brady got shut out.
Yeah, Tom Brady got shut out. First time in 15 years.
It's nuts. Not the record, but second most, I believe, behind Drew Brees for most consecutive games without being shut out. I think Drew Brees over 400.
In today's NFL, I'm surprised he didn't get points. The game was only 9-0. How did they not get a field goal at some point?
It was tough. He got beat up. They
Steelers have his number. They beat him 4 times. They beat him every regular season matchup, I think.
Oh. They shut him out last year besides the playoffs.
Yeah. They beat him both
twice last year. Yeah. You said the Steelers, but I think you meant the Saints.
Oh, Saints. Yes, Saints. Saints beat them, I think, every regular season game so far, but they've lost the postseason.
Yeah, which obviously we know Tom Brady in the postseason is untouchable. But, I mean, statistically, he actually had a really bad game. He got sacked 4 times, doesn't include quarterback hits. They didn't run the ball very well. Ronald Jones had a couple big runs. Oh, Godwin's done for the season.
Yeah.
He tore, was it his ACL?
ACL. Yeah.
Which is not good because Mike
He's
Evans is
done.
also beat up.
Mike Evans is out. The Bucks have said, though, Antonio Brown will come back.
Of course. He got his slap on the
Bruce
wrist.
Arians said, yeah, he did the time. We can come back now.
9-0. That's such a weird score for that game. The over-under on that game was 45.5.
Oh,
Tampa Bay, 11.5 point spread. That's nuts. I think, I like the Saints, and I think it goes to show that without Drew Brees, he's a big factor. The Saints are a good team. They are literally without, arguably, one of the best quarterbacks to ever do it. Even as he got older, last year was a little bit different. He was a little beat up. But this team's 7-7 right now, which I would not have predicted them to be. They beat up on Green Bay in week 1. Same way they beat up on Tom Brady in this week 14, I believe it is, 15. Now, does that mean I want to see the Saints in the playoffs? No, I think that they're a mediocre team, but it's makes you wonder how good of a coach is Sean Payton. I think he's a damn good coach.
He's kept him in there for a while, I can't even tell you how many years, and they've always been competitive.
Mm-hmm. He's been there since like Hurricane Katrina, like that time period. He's been. Yeah, they won the Super Bowl. Yeah,
say since around 2009, 2008-ish.
Okay, right around there. Yeah, I think even a couple years before then. Chiefs are looking good.
Yeah, they have the 1 seed again.
Yep. They've been on a winning streak. They won an OT against the Chargers. Chargers are a very competitive team. Cowboys still 10-4. They're winning. They had a pretty easy matchup. Teddy Bridgewater, I saw get carted off.
Yeah, Teddy Bridgewater. I think he didn't slide for something, and he got hit in the head because of it.
That just reminded me, the receiver on the Chargers that got hurt. I did not look at a status yet to see what was what.
He just has a concussion.
Okay. Parham Jr., Donald Parham Jr. There was a non-contact, still for the football, smacked his head. Probably one of the scariest things I've seen since Ryan Shazier. Probably one of the scariest. Shazier's was definitely the scariest thing I've seen as a football fan. So shout out to him, man. Hopefully he pulls through. You never want to see guys get hurt, especially with that type of injury, head injuries. CTE is a real thing. We just heard that Vincent Jackson, who was found dead in his, I think it was a hotel room maybe, or apartment at the beginning of the year. Might have been last year, actually. I could be wrong. They did run tests. They found that he did check for pass for CTE, which is a scary thing for athletes, not just football. It's primarily football players because of the contact with the head. But it's a scary thing. Obviously there's got to be something that can be done for it. It seems to be a newer thing that's being tracked over the last few years. So that's another thing too. So it's always a concern with concussions. Guys who get it. Somebody just had their second concussion in like 2 weeks. I can't think about who it was. They said their second concussion and they're probably going to be done now. 2 concussions in 2 weeks. Oh man, who was it? Somebody on my fantasy team. I know that, but
something that was really sad while you think of that I don't think we talked about on the podcast Demaryius Thomas passing away.
Oh my God. Dude, yeah. Wow.
33 years of age.
Yeah. I was shocked. I was very shocked. I didn't see it until the next morning. I saw trending Twitter tags, obviously. Yeah, I saw Demaryius Thomas was trending. Clicked his name because I'm like, well, he hasn't been in the league for a couple years. And yeah, I mean, the news was very random. I mean, I only know of him as being the guy who was just dominating the league just a couple years ago as a receiver with the Broncos.
Mm-hmm.
Obviously, being in the Super Bowl with Peyton Manning, having some very, very key catches throughout his career. His numbers were nuts.
The Tim Tebow throw in overtime.
Yep, against Pittsburgh. Took it to the house. Off the field, players had nothing but good things to say about him. And how about the Broncos starting the game with 10 men on the field,
Yeah, and then the other
leaving the X
teams
slot? Yeah.
declining
Yep.
the delay of game.
Which was awesome.
I'm most sad about his mom. His mom was known too. She was blind.
Hmm.
And she would attend all the games, and he would make sure whenever he would score, he would like go for the ball, made sure like he knew like, or she knew that he was like there and noticed her, and care of her.
Hmm.
Now that her son's gone.
Yeah, Demaryius Thomas definitely, I would say, could very well be a Hall of Fame receiver. I mean, his numbers were good every single year, no matter who the team had at quarterback. Um, Whoever was on the receiving core, he was always the number one. On the field, off the field, sounded like he was an awesome dude. Um, Never heard of any negativity from the media even. So that's how you know that he's definitely a good dude. But rest in peace to a real one. Um, I actually almost bought a Demaryius Thomas jersey one time. I was in a phase where I was going through figuring out which jerseys to buy, and of course I always settled with Green Bay players only, Jordy Nelson's, Clay Matthews, a couple of those guys. But Demaryius Thomas was actually a very fun player. He's one of my favorites um to watch during that time, especially in the Super Bowl. Especially in the Super Bowl. Obviously led by Peyton Manning and company. But yeah, that was very shocking news, and sure he's gonna be missed very much by the NFL community and the Broncos family.
Had we? He would have been 34 on Christmas.
Wow. Super young. Super young. NFL. I don't think there's really much news besides the we're getting close to the playoffs. I got eliminated from my fantasy leagues. I didn't even make the playoffs in one,
Yeah, we have 3 weeks
which
left.
2 weeks with fantasy, 3 weeks in total with the NFL. Kind of have the playoff picture, kind of. Like I said, the AFC North, AFC East is up for grabs. Chiefs will probably take their division. Chiefs will probably end up with the first round bye. Green Bay is the number one team in the NFC. Cardinals got beat up by Detroit. Didn't expect that. Kyler Murray was my fantasy quarterback. I only cried for about 3 hours. Um, so the NFC West is also up for grabs. Rams, to me, might be the better team than the Cardinals. We'll see what ends up happening over the stretch of 3 games. But that's pretty much it.
Yeah. That'll do it for this week's episode of the Standing Room Only podcast. If you guys did enjoy, make sure you subscribe. Hope you have a good holiday this week. And we will talk to you once more before the end of 2021. As always, SR Only Pod, Twitter and Instagram. Follow our personal pages. Mine is at the Healy6.
And I'm iGoose with 4 O's. Go ahead and hit that follow button. Let's talk sports.